let's get started. So today I wanted to talk about testing and securing AI generated code with Cursor. The main theme of the event is that we generate a lot of code using Cursor, but a lot of times, the models are hallucinating or they are not doing exactly what you intended to do, and sometimes there's a security issues and a lot of bugs inside of it. So it's not really useful in terms of deploying apps in production using Cursor, or when you're working on a real app, you don't want any issues or bugs going with your code. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So who am I? My name is Shrey. I'm a Cursor ambassador for Canada and a senior AI engineer. I'm working at a startup called Vivan in San Francisco. I also run AI-assisted coding workshops on different platforms, and I've been speaking at various conferences about AI coding as well. I started using AI to code back in 2020 with GitHub Copilot. It's been about 5 years since I've been coding using AI, and I've tried to figure out different workflows that allow me to move really, really fast with AI while maintaining the quality and speed. For those of you who are not aware of Cursor, Cursor is your AI sidekick in your development workflow. It acts as your pair coder. It's just a fork of VS Code. So if you're already familiar with VS Code, it's a really easy migration to just work with Cursor. Now, what makes Cursor different than other tools that are out there, right? So there's like Cloud Code, there's AmpCode, there's Kiro, there's all sorts of these different tools that make coding using AI really, really easy. But what I particularly love about Cursor is that it makes context engineering really, really easy. And we're going to see how it makes it really, really easy. And I've never seen any other tool do this more efficiently. So I think that's the secret sauce behind Cursor. Like, they just make context engineering really, really easy. As we know that these agents, love to guess things, but if you, give it proper context, it's not going to hallucinate, and as a result of that, you're going to get much better output. So Cursor kind of does a lot of context engineering behind the scenes for you. That's what makes it different. It's not about providing different models and the UI. So how many of you guys use Cursor rules, user rules, and project rules? Like, I wanted to get a sense of like how people use Cursor in this room so that I can tailor the session accordingly. Can you guys raise your hands if you are using Cursor rules? All right. And how many of you guys are aware of project rules and user rules, and then also bug-bout rules and stuff like that? Have you guys used those extensively or not? Okay, so I see very few hand raises, meaning that I think I might need to cover the basics of user rules and project rules. I'll probably start with that. So user rules is basically global to your Cursor environment, meaning that it applies to all of your project, and it's going to be used by all of your agent chats and applies to all of the chat threads that you start with Cursor, meaning that every single time you send a message to Cursor, your user rule or your global rule is going to apply to that. Second type of rule is project rules. So these are scoped for the specific project. So they can be invoked or used using path patterns. They can be invoked manually, meaning that you have to like manually attach that specific rule to the context, or it could be also based on the relevance. So this apply intelligently part that is right here, it's kind of like Claude skills. Cursor had it like for over a year at this point. So the agent can decide when to pull in that context depending on what you're doing, right? And then it can be applied to specific files, or it can be applied manually, and it can be always applied as well for the specific project. And what most people don't know is that you can actually create Cursor rules in each module of your project. So if you're working in a monorepo, if you have like front end and back end in the same repository, you can actually have cursor rules in each of the front end and back end, and then those rules will be applied for front end and back end accordingly. So that way, like, you are doing proper context engineering. One way I use it is actually by giving the agents memory of what's inside of that module. So every single time the agent is going to read a file or work on that specific module, it's actually going to take a look at the memory for that module and then work on that. And once it's done working, it's also going to update that memory autonomously to keep that up to date as well. So that's like one of the most powerful uses of using cursor rules in subdirectories in cursor. Let's actually try this out in action. So feel free to open any project that you have, or you can just open cursor, just a regular, empty cursor as well. So I'm probably going to do that just for the sake of this demo. So I'm going to create a sample test folder here.
Could you zoom in a bit? It's still quite visible.
Yeah, I'll actually do a couple of things. Cursor settings. Let me make the theme white. Oh, sorry. It's and then I'm gonna cursor light. So that should help. And then I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. All right. Are you guys able to see the screen now? Perfect. All right. So I'm gonna get rid of this for now. I don't have anything right now. If I go and take a look at my user rules, I'll have something. So these are the rules that come with all the projects, right? So for example, I work a lot with Cloud 4.5 Sonnet, and it just likes to create a lot of Markdown files. I hate it. It keeps telling me I'm absolutely right all the time. I hate it. So that's all is going into my user rules, so it doesn't do that. It actually now just creates text files and not Markdown files, but it still creates summary in the files. Point is, you can be opinionated about what you want to have in your cursor, your rules. Basically, if you have a coding style and you want your agent to represent your own coding style, those kind of things go into your user rules, global rules, which is going to be applied to your specific coding workflow, right? Because if you're working on a team, on a production project, and if you're sharing the rules with your entire team, you can't enforce your coding standard to someone else, which is why you kind of have these user rules. So that's why those common scenarios can go into user rules, and that's what I have here. This is my own personal coding standard or coding style that I like. So all of those are just going into my user rules here. So that's the first thing. So every single chat thread will have this user rule. So for example, if I just ask cursor, can you tell me what rules do I have in this project? What are the user rules? I'm going to hit Composer 1. It's really fast. It's going to save me some time. Right? So as you can see, all those rules are here. I could just say, like, keep it as is, don't summarize. But as you can see, it doesn't have anything in the project, but it still has all the files, meaning that cursor by default injects all of these rules into every single chat request that you're sending to cursor. So this is the first thing you need to be aware of, because that does make a day and night difference in how your outputs look like with cursor. And then let's talk about project rules, right? So here I'm going to create a single rule file called test.mdc. It's going to be always applied. The UI is kind of really hard to work with because of the zoom, but okay. So here I'm going to create a random rule. So I'm going to say always end your responses with a smiley face and the phrase Iron Man. I want to say Iron Man. And the reason I say Iron Man here is because I want it to be obvious that it actually is applying my rules correctly, and just to show you guys how the different rules play into effect. So I can just say hi here now, and it should, in theory, reply with end the response with Ironman. But since we are using Composer, it's not really good at following the instructions. I'll probably switch to 4.5 Sonnet, and you'll see that it actually gets applied. Okay, what's going on here? This is always, I didn't save it, that's why. All right, I don't know why it's not working. Let me, is it even applying the rule to the context? There seems to be a bug here. I've done this hundreds of times, and it works every single time. I don't know what's happening today. With Ironman. What's the weather? Oh, my bad. I did not create the file under the rules directory. That's why it was not applying. So now if I just say simple hi.
Excuse me. So are you just using built-in cursor chat, or is that client you're using?
It's a built-in cursor chat. I could disable client and all the other things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is cursor. It's not client. There's definitely something going on.
True. You need to put it to true. So you run it manually.
I think I might have changed it, but yeah. So if I just say hi, it should in theory work. It is under the rules directory, so it should work this time. Yeah, it worked. Live demos are always tricky. But yeah, so it always apply intelligently. So here I could say, so here you could basically like apply this rule when a certain condition happens. So for example, like I want to apply this rule whenever the user is greeting me. So I could say, use this rule whenever the user is greeting you, but do not apply this rule in all the other scenarios. And in production, like you can, apply, you can think of like Cloud skills. For example, like in Cloud skills, you can say like, hey, if you're working with a presentation file or Excel file, then only you apply this rule. So similar thing in Cursor as well. So this is Cursor's equivalent of Cloud skills, if you're aware of Cloud skills. But basically here, I'm greeting it, so it should reply and it should apply this rule and end the response with Ironman. Did. So it basically explored the file because I greeted it, right? Now if I end the response with Ironman, and I'm not going to have this file in the context, because if it's open, it's going to be in the context and it's going to end with Ironman. So I could say, what's the weather? And here I'm not greeting, so it should not end the response with Ironman. This is a very basic foundation before I get started, because otherwise it's going to be hard for me to explain the rest of the session. All right, so it worked. The third type of rule is apply to specific files. So here I'm just going to say star.tsx, right? Save. So now if I say hi, this rule is not going to be applied unless a tsx file is in the context. So I could create a sample tsx file. Right, say pass, don't do anything. And then cursor used to have this context ring here that you used to show like what's in the context, but I think they removed it in the recent versions. They're working on a newer version of it, but yeah. And now if I just say hi again, it should be applied because now the TSX file is in the context. So I think this is the foundation of how the rules work in cursor. And then if you have multiple modules, you can have multiple rules in all of those different modules, and those will be applied. And those rules can also be treated as memory as well if you want to. So yeah, it did end the response with Iron Man because now the TSX file is in the context. Okay, so that's the basics about rules. So now let's get back to the slides and move on to the next section. All right, so feel free to use your own project if you have. If not, you can clone this repository in your local. You don't have to clone this repository. You can also work on any of your own project if you want to, but if you don't have anything to work on, you can clone this repository, and that's what I'm going to be using. I could also just paste this that link in the Zoom chat.
Just basically Discord. I'll put it in Zoom as well. So you know.
Yeah, let me just do that.
Just a practical question. Does this assume that we have a paid cursor account or no?
I think you can use the free one as well with the auto mode, and that should work just fine. If you have a paid version, that's going to be much better, but if you have a free one, that's fine as well. You can also just use your own API key. If you don't have the paid account, just like grab an OpenAI key or Anthropic key and just put that in, and that should also do the trick. Yeah, if you don't know, you can basically just so if you go to the models tab, and then if you go to API keys, you can bring your own keys, and that way you don't have to pay for cursor. So that's one way to get started. Okay, so now present again. All right, so before we actually get hands-on into testing, we need to understand some of the new Cursor 2.0 features that we are going to use to power our workflows. So Cursor 2.0 released Composer 1, which is their state-of-the-art model for AI coding, which is fine-tuned for AI coding. And then they also released workers, meaning that you can use you can invoke multiple models for the same prompt, and they all work in parallel to get a job done. So that's going to make your workflows really, really fast. So I'll show a demo of that, how we can implement that. They also introduced built-in browser and Playwright MCP, which will allow us to kind of work directly inside of Cursor for front end and kind of use Playwright MCP for testing and web automation as well. And they also introduced hooks, which I use a lot for applying reinforcement learning techniques to my Cursor workflows. So treating the Cursor workflows same as your agents and applying reinforcement learning techniques on top of your Cursor workflows as well, treating them same as the agents. So let's actually show a quick demo of Composer 1 worktrees and then Playwright as well. So I'll switch over to Cursor. Okay, so just to give you guys some idea, let me first run this app. So this is the app that I wanted to demo today. So this is something that I built to share the Cursor resources or the rules and MCPs and stuff like that that I've been collecting over the years, collecting and building myself. It has a lot of rules and commands that you can use to work faster and be more productive in Cursor. and you can just click on whatever you like, and it should add that to your cursor as well. So that's the app that we are working with. Now, as you can see, there's no easy way to share the resource. So I want to add a sharing link, simple feature that I want to develop in this application. So let me actually open cursor, and actually let's start to implement that using multiple models. So let's say I want to implement this using 4 models. I want to run with Composer 1. And by the way, Google just released Gemini 3 Pro like an hour ago, so I'm going to use that. And Sonnet 4.5. So I want to implement this feature with all these 3 models at the same time, and then see the output of each model in real time and see how well each model did. Kind of good test for Gemini 3 here as well. I'm going to make Composer 1 just 1, use multiple models. So one time with Composer 1 time with Gemini 3, and 1 time with Claude Sonnet 4.5. And then let me paste the feature that I wanted to work on. Yeah. Okay, so the prompt just says implement a resource sharing feature and keep testing until it works. So here I'm doing 2 things. I'm asking it to implement a resource sharing feature, and I'm also asking it to keep testing it until it works. Here I have not defined strict requirements. Ideally, I would create a markdown document with the plan and the spec, but for the sake of this demo, I don't want to stretch it too long, so I'm just going to keep it simple. So here I'm simply saying keep testing it until it works. So it's going to define its own acceptance criteria. I could define my own, but for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to let the model do that. And then test both the backend and frontend if needed. Use the Chrome DevTools and Playwright MCP for testing your own work. And then I'm going to do add browser. They removed it again. Okay. Yeah, they removed add browser, so probably I'm gonna rely on the model to do that. I'm going to enable Chrome DevTools MCP. You can grab the Chrome DevTools MCP from either the cursor marketplace, or you can also just go to my app that I just shared and get it from there. So there is also a link. I'm gonna copy the link address and also share that in the Zoom chat. So this is a deployed version. It's not like really deployed, it's just working in production, but you can grab that to grab all the MCP servers and all the resources that I'm gonna be sharing. So I have Chrome DevTools MCP server, and Playwright just comes with cursor. So if you go over here and go to tools, as you can see, Playwright is configured here. When you see browser automation here, it's just simply Playwright MCP. So I have Playwright MCP and I have Chrome DevTools. So I'm just asking it to use Chrome DevTools and Playwright MCP to test its own work. And now I have 3 models here. I'm gonna 3x Gemini 3.5 Pro. There's a bug here now. I'm selecting 3 models and it's showing 4. Anyway. I'm going to hit send. So this should create failed to create Git work tree. What's going on? So it canceled the task in all the other work trees, which is weird. There is a bug going on here. I'm gonna say multiple models. For the sake of this, I'm just gonna keep 2 models. What's going on? I'm gonna ask cursor to fix this. I don't have time to debug myself, so I'm just gonna say fix this. Accept. I'm just going to say just remove that hook. All right, so that's removed. So now it should work. Sorry. Agents, editor mode, new chat. Then select multiple models, composer and Sonnet 4.5. Only one times composer. So actually just comment this. Remove. All right, and then so this should run two models in parallel, as you can see, Sonnet 4.5 and Composer 1. Side by side. So Composer 1 is actually already doing a lot of work already. Sonnet is still figuring out. It's going to take about 2 minutes for it to be done. All right, so now it started testing. I think the app is not running. So it's run that now. And now it's starting to test its own work. And let's actually see what's going on. So this is the high-level overview of how that works. I don't think we can keep waiting for it to finish the entire testing work, because that's probably going to take 15 to 20 minutes. But as you can see, it would take a snapshot of the page, take a screenshot if needed as well. It's not taking a screenshot yet. Just trying to probably figure out the elements. It's listing console message to see what's going on inside. It's probably stuck here, I think.
Ask a question.
Yep.
Does it have to have the browser in the foreground, like in front of everything, to be able to take a screenshot, or can this all just happen in the background? Can I run this automated in the cloud somewhere?
So right now, the background agents in Cursor do not have access to MCP servers. So I don't think you can, do it. You can actually use browser-based MCP. It does have remote execution, but it'll be your own custom workflow. It will probably be not something that you can just do out of the box. You can set up your own Docker file for the background agent that can include everything that you want, and then that background agent will have access to MCP servers. It can work that way, but out of the box, it doesn't support that. If you want your custom workflow, you have to build your own Docker image to do that, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So it's taking a screenshot to see what's happening. Sonnet is still working. It's not done implementing. Composer 1 is done. It's testing. And then let's say let's assume that the testing went well. We are probably not going to have time to go through the entire testing ourselves right now. So I'm going to stop this. But let's say you are happy with the changes and you want to now apply all of this or bring all of this to your actual main branch. So you can apply all of this, and that will bring all of the changes in your local branch, right? And then you can actually see how it's going to work in your actual application. So you can run this again. So is it running on 3000? Yeah. It's getting some errors. You can probably fix that. That's not an issue. Yeah. So we are not testing this part, so it's probably fine. It's a very small bug. But can be fixed. So you can. That's how you can bring the changes from one Git worktree to your current branch, and then you can undo apply. And let's say I really like Sonnet 4.5 changes. I could probably do apply here, and then it's gonna basically apply Sonnet 4.5 changes into my branch now. So if I now go back to localhost 3000, as you can see, Cloud 4.5 actually did a good job at implementing that, and the share feature is there. You can say it's gonna expire in like 1, and then it's gonna, yeah, I'm not authenticated right now, so it's not working, but that's not the point. The point is like you can actually see the changes from both the models at the same time. So I did not have to like ask Composer 1 to fix its changes, because I ran 2 models, one 4.5, one Composer 1. One of them did a really good job at implementing my feature. It worked out of the box, saved me time of going back and fixing it. It just worked. So that's how you can bring changes from one Git worktree to the other and just make sure that it just works. Or you can also just ask the agent to combine both the changes and take the best of them and just merge all of those into your actual branch. So I'm going to undo all of this as well. I don't want to have all of this, so I'm going to discard all the files. Okay, so that's how the Composer 1 and Git worktrees with multi-model works in Cursor now. So that's a new feature that the Cursor released in Cursor 2.0. We also saw the agents invoking Playwright MCP to try to test its own work. And the last thing I wanted to show was hooks. So there is plenty of ways you can use hooks. The way I use it is actually in production. What I do is I use these hooks to create CSV files out of the input and output that I'm getting from the models, and then I take a few samples, collect few examples of the specific workflow, and then apply reinforcement learning technique using DSPy to improve my prompts to get to what I want, so that you have deterministic workflows. But as you can see, I have this audit hook that basically literally just takes the JSON input and then just writes all of that into this agent audit log file. So everything that I'm doing is being logged somewhere. So this is really useful for enterprises looking to figure out like how their developers are using Cursor. But you can write a hook to do almost anything using a shell script. And then if I actually open my Cursor folder, it should be able to also show you guys the audit log. Yeah, so that's the log file. So it has all the logs, everything that I did in Cursor right here. So you can use this in multiple different ways, like I mentioned, or you can write your own hook to do something. You can also write a hook to automatically optimize your prompts before it gets to the model. So yeah. Okay, so that's about Cursor hooks. Now let's move on to the next section. All right, so now I think we can talk about testing the AI generated code. So how do you test the code while the agent is doing it, right? I think I showed a quick demo of that. You can just ask the model to test its own changes while it's doing it, right? You can also make it part of implementation plan. So normally I do not give it ad hoc prompts like this. I would have actually a statement of work that would actually dictate what acceptance criteria it needs to have, how to test the changes and stuff like that, and that will result in a much more coherent response. So you can ask the model to test its own changes, make it part of your plan as well. So when you're giving the prompt, ask the model to test its own changes, and if you have some scenarios in mind, you can also just make it part of your prompt during implementation, so that you don't have to ask the model to test its own changes afterwards or fix itself afterwards, as it can just see its failures and kind of fix itself while it's doing it. And then you can also test it after building. So I use this MCP server called TestSprite, and along with that, I also use Chrome DevTools to test the changes after building. I have also made this a reusable workflow, and I then reference that as a rule as well, so that you can invoke the workflow as a rule after it's done. So I'm also going to show an example of that as well. And then the standard way of testing is also writing unit tests. I think all the devs know that already, so I'm not going to talk about that a lot. But let's actually see how you can use TestSprite to test the changes after it's done. So I have a few changes that I worked on. So I'm gonna apply the changes here. All right. So I've got quite a few changes here. Let's say I did not let the agent write this code. I wrote this code myself. And now I want to test these changes, make sure that it actually aligns with my product requirement documents and everything. So for this sake of this, I'm going to use a tool called TestSprite. I'm going to enable TestSprite. So I have 7 tools. And then I want to give the agent some context. So I'm going to say, summarize all the stage changes in the current repository and format them in Markdown. Staged changes. So by default, cursor also, whenever the request is relevant, cursor is also going to pull in the git changes automatically, so you don't have to provide the git diff to the agent kind of already knows, unless you explicitly ask it. Then the agent is actually gonna run the command and actually get the current diff. By the way, we should not run everything all the time. I'm just doing it for the sake of this demo to make things faster. What's going on here? All right, so now we have the summary of all of the changes. You see this context ring here. You can actually see the active rules here. I'm not sure what's going on, but I was not seeing this context ring earlier, and now I'm seeing it. So you can actually see all the rules that are being applied in this session already. So we have the TypeScript rule that's being applied. We have sneak rules, and then we have commenting standards rule that is being applied to this chat session right now. Anyway, now we have all of this. So I created a workflow for testing the changes with TestSprite. Yeah. So I created this workflow that basically bootstraps the entire testing environment for TestSprite. And we're also going to see how to create reusable workflows like this in this session as well. So basically, I have this workflow that defines how to test the current changes with TestSprite. So I'm going to invoke this workflow. So I'm just going to do / and test application with TestSprite, and then I also have a PRD file that defines what is this product, and then I'm just going to say test the current changes with test sprite. Let me make sure that the MCP tools are enabled. Test sprite, and then if I hit enter, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them now. The agent is probably going to take 5 minutes to run.
Any questions at all about Cursor, its use? Yeah.
Is there other open source tools for testing?
Open source tools for testing, I would say like you can use Playwright MCP for testing. That's one of the open source ones. You can build reusable workflows for Playwright as well. I can probably show that if folks are interested in doing that. I can just show that. But other than that, like there is no like a full-blown application that's available to test changes. Like that's open source. There's nothing. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sounds like an opportunity for someone to write one. If you want to pick that up. Any other questions at all?
Password.
1 moment.
2, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, hi. I've noticed that there's a feature where you can have multiple agents running on one particular query. Like not agents, LLMs. Like you can have Gemini, Claude, the OpenAI one, whatever, right? What's the usefulness of that? Like, how can we get the best usage out of that?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking if you can use multiple different models to run agents in parallel, and then like what's the use case of that? So like I mentioned, you can use that to implement a feature in parallel, right? So for example, like all the different models have different strengths, right? So for example, like Composer 1 is really good at creating front-end code. Claude 4.5 is really good at creating front-end code, right? And sometimes you might just want to use Claude 4.5 like 4 times to see like what kind of different designs it comes up with, right? Or if you're working on an architecture solution, you want to see kind of you want to like run that with different models to see what kind of different architecture patterns it come up with to help you brainstorm as well, right? So you can run the same model with like same prompt with 4 different models to help with debugging. That's how I use it. Like I use like 4 or 5 different models to debug an issue or to review my code. So I get a review from Claude 4.5 Sonnet, I get a review from Codex, I get a review from Gemini, and then I see all those reviews and see if I spot anything interesting there, or you could combine all of them and then ask the model to fix all those issues. So you can use them in multiple different ways. The possibilities are like infinite. There's like you can almost do anything with it, right? It's like it's going to give you so much time back when you're running those in parallel, because you're not going to have to do as much of back and forth to find those issues or to implement those features. So it's probably going to fail. I'm going to ask it to create a test user, but it's basically asking me to select the scope of testing. So I want the scope to be the Git diff right now. I want to test only the front end. And then it's running on 3000. I'm going to give it a PRD file. So that's the PRD file is right here. So I'm going to give it the PRD file so it understands the code base. Then I'm going to continue. Then if I go back, now it got the PRD, so it's probably going to create a bunch of tests for me. if you guys want to see any other feature in Cursor, or if you have any other confusing question or anything, I'm happy to answer that as well, because it's probably going to take a long time for the agent to do the whole thing. So I normally use this time to take Q&A.
Any questions?
Right. So it actually creates a code summary as well with the features, with the different features, the endpoints and everything itself as well. Yes, please go ahead. So while it's doing that, we can also probably start to form the basis of securing the code with AI in Cursor. It's probably going to take a long time. All right. So while it's testing, we can also kind of talk about security. So how do you secure AI generated code, right? So first is like, the best is like, just create secure code from scratch, right? So prevention is always better than cure. So use rules with OS standard or whatever your standard is for security. So use rules from the beginning, and those should be like always applied, so that like you always create secure code, right? So there are tools that allow you to do this efficiently, but you can also create your own rules and workflows for your own project if you like to. There is also a tool called Corridor. I was going to demo that today, but I won't be able to. They're probably down because of the Cloudflare issue. It's not working today. But what Corridor does is that whenever you give it a prompt, it actually takes a look at your prompt, see if there is an issue with your prompt, or like it's going to rewrite your prompt to make it more secure, so that the agents generate secure code from scratch, so that you don't have to like try to fix it later on. You just end up generating a secure code from the beginning. So that's what it influences. So you can influence how the agents write code from the beginning. So that's how you generate secure code from the scratch. So that's going to help you prevent generating code with issues and vulnerabilities. And then the second part is you can also secure the code after generating. I think Sneak is a really good tool. And then another one that I like is CodeRabbit. So Sneak has an MCP server, so you can actually generate the code, and after that you can use Sneak to scan the generated code inside of your agent. So I know that we have been using Sneak in GitHub for a long time, right? To scan the code for issues. But like, what if you could just make it part of your coding workflow inside of Cursor or inside of Cloud Code, whatever agent you are using, so that after it's generating the code, it's also going to use Sneak to scan your code and fix itself before it actually goes to GitHub. And then the second one is CodeRabbit. CodeRabbit is a code review tool, but it actually does incorporate Sneak inside of it. So if you're actually using CodeRabbit, you might actually not even need Sneak, because it just has that inside of it. I think there is a really good resource of so CodeRabbit has all of these tools inbuilt, so I think Sneak is part of that. So it is Git leaks, OSV scanner, ramification, and a lot of other security tools here. Plenty of tools for security. So if you are using, SamGraph is there as well. So I used to use SamGraph to also, scan code for issues security-wise. And once I started using CodeRabbit, all of that just came with CodeRabbit. So I just like now use CodeRabbit for all of that. But yeah, that's like one way of making sure that your generated code is secure. And then like obviously the standard scan the code for issues using GitHub Actions. So actually, let's actually also try to review some of the workflows that I've created.
While you do that, do you mind if I mention another tool Slightly self-serving because I made it. That is similar to that middle column. Like while you're writing scan for vulnerabilities, there's a tool called Gripe, Grype. It's fully open source vulnerability scanner, very similar to Sneak. And I wrote an MCP server in Python, so you can have that as part of your development process to have it scan for vulnerabilities before you push to GitHub. It's on GitHub, just search for Grype, Gripe, MCP. Yeah, I just thought that might be useful. It's fully open source. Yeah.
Nice, I didn't know about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't write it that long ago. It's not been around very long.
But yeah, let's getting back to security. So basically, if you install the Sneak MCP, it's gonna automatically set up the Sneak extension. It's also gonna automatically set up the Sneak MCP for you, and then it's also going to set up the Sneak rule in your cursor rules directory. So right now, the Sneak rules that says that always run the Sneak code scan tool whenever the code is generated, and rescan after the code, after fixing the issues to make sure that there are no issues, and then repeat this process until new issues are found. So it's kind of already doing it for you just by installing the extension. So you don't have to do anything extra for that. And then, maybe I can also start security in parallel. So I have, so I have this workflow that says scan git changes with Sneak. Let's actually also see how we can create similar workflows, right? So I'm just going to say, I'm just going to get rid of this workflow for now, so it's not there. Can you scan the current git changes with Sneak for security issues? And I want this to be quick. I don't want it to take too long, so I'm just going to use Composer 1. Do I have Sneak MCP enabled? I probably disabled that. It's there. Okay. All right. So I have this workflow called create new workflow. So this asks me set of questions to understand what I'm trying to get out of a specific thing. So normally what I do is whenever I'm working with cursor and I see myself doing the same thing or giving the same prompt or doing the same task more than 2 to 3 times, I run that through this so that it creates a workflow for that, and then I save that into my cursor commands directory so that I can just invoke that the next time without writing the prompt myself. And the result of that, I'm actually going to get a lot more productive, and the results are going to be much more accurate and to the point. It found 3 issues. It didn't fix it automatically, but now I can just say, create new workflow. That's the workflow that I want. Create a new workflow for Sneak that will automatically scan the current git diff changes with Sneak, and then it's also going to automatically fix those as well. Use the exit names of the Sneak MCP tool. So it's important to also mention the exit names of the tool. So every single tool comes with different tools. So here, if you see, it's mentioning the exit tool name, and the reason of doing this is because it's going to bring determination to the workflows and make sure that it's also going to call the exit tool that you wanted to invoke every single time without making a mistake. So if you go here to the MCP section, and if you hover over the tool section, actually let me expand this, and then you can actually see the tool description and the args and everything for the specific tool. So you can actually use the exact same tool name in your workflows to make your workflows more deterministic, and then you can also in future, like I mentioned, like apply reinforcement learning techniques to these workflows itself, so it does exactly what you want. But that's going to be a little bit of stretch. I'm gonna, and then if I hit enter, it's going to ask me a few questions. If it has questions, if it has all the context from the thread, then it's probably going to just create the workflow. It's asking me a few questions probably. Yeah, so it's asking me the workflow name. It just went ahead with it. But now it's just creating the workflow for me. So the best practice is like whenever you are working with something and if you are doing the same thing 2 to 3 times, just create a workflow out of that, and that's going to help you save a lot of time next time. And then you manually review the workflow to make sure that it actually does what you intended to do. But normally, if that doesn't work, like you refine the workflow according to your needs or whatever it needs to fix. So you can do that afterwards. So that's like how you can create workflow. Or let's say I don't want this security issues to happen ever again. So I can just say I can also create new rules. So rule generating agent. Yeah. So I also have another prompt or command that helps me generate the rules, that helps me generate cursor rules. So I'm going to say help me generate front-end specific security rules so that these security issues never happen again, and I can just apply that rule always to all of my chats. So now it's just going to create a rule for front end so that it's going to be applied to all the chats all the time, so that every single time I'm generating or rewriting a specific piece of code, it is going to apply that, and then as a result of that, it's going to generate the secure code. Or you could also like make it apply intelligently, meaning that you can say, hey, just create a rule for forms. So whenever I'm working on forms, this rule should automatically be applied, and as a result of that, whenever the agent is creating new forms, whenever it's writing new forms on TypeScript, it's going to apply this rule automatically, and then it's going to create secure code as a result of that. So you don't have to go ahead and do back and forth and fix it with Sneak or any other tool. So that helps me save a lot of time as well. So now I can actually see that this rule is always applied, and then it has all the rules that allow the agent to avoid these issues in the future when generating similar code, right? So it found the issues and it gave examples in all of that, and now I have a rule that I can apply to generate secure code. All right, let's see where this is going. I think it's still running. So if I open test sprite, I might be able to see what's going on. All right. Yeah, all the tests are in progress still.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I noticed when you're using Cursor, you talk to it, you use your voice. And I know a lot of people, when they're using like ChatGPT, they'll talk to it like it's a person kind of thing. Is that a thing you're specifically doing today, or do you always talk to your agent like that, rather than typing?
I barely type. I always talk, because when I'm talking, I can give it more relevant context. I can add more things to the context, and that really helps the agent understand my task. So I almost never type anything. I just talk.
It amazes me the little things you pick up here. Am I alone? I never talk to my agents. You don't, or do? Like, I can understand from an accessibility point of view, like if typing is hard, but that's blown my mind. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I actually have a list of all the open source tools that are available that you can use. So I'm using Whisperflow, but I think there is plenty of apps you can actually use to. I think there's like VoiceSync that I used to use. There's also like, I forgot the other one. Whisper Real Time is something that I used to use as well. So you can use all these tools to just like run text to voice in real time in your local and do it as well. But yeah, Cursor also has inbuilt voice mode that you can use. I think it's Command Shift. I forgot the exact command because I've never used it. Yeah, it's Command Shift V. Hey, is it working? Oops. I could just actually voice. Yeah, toggle verse mode is actually shift command space. So shift command space, or is it shift control? So it's shift command space, yeah. So if I do shift command and space, I can just talk whatever I want and cursor should be able to. Yeah, okay. I hear you. Stop. Yeah. So that works. I think TestPad is still working on the changes on the tests. It usually just does not take this painfully long. I'm not sure why it's taking so long, but as you can see earlier, I ran the same test and some of them passed, some of them failed. I could actually also see the test that it was doing, what it was doing for each test, and how it worked. So there might be something going on, maybe because of Cloudflare they're down. I'm not exactly sure, but it's not running, I think. It's just getting stuck. I'm not seeing anything here, so there might be their infrastructure is down, but you can see from the history here that yeah, you can actually run the tests using TestPad and it will actually give you a report. It's supposed to work. I hate live demos when this happens. It's just stuck here. So normally what this will do is it's going to run the tests and it's going to give me a report in the end. And it's also going to fix all the issues that it finds in the test itself. But it's not working right now. So I'm probably going to cancel that and not going to wait on that for more than a few minutes. Maybe I can ask the model to use Playwright to test the changes. Because I wanted to show this workflow, but it's somehow just stuck there. Yeah, it's. All right. Use Playwright and Chrome DevTools MCP to test all of your changes. Make sure that all of the acceptance criteria is met. You can define your own acceptance criteria for this scenario. I don't have one, but make sure that it works as expected. The agent generated this code, so there might be some issues. So make sure that you take screenshots and click on the buttons and everything to make sure that all the functionality that we just implemented is working. Implemented. All right. Yeah. So we generated a security rule on the security side to make sure that it generates secure code all the time. We also created a workflow that helps us create more workflows. And if you go on the same application that I shared earlier, you can actually, let me just go back. Don't need to. You can actually scan for that as well. So create new workflow. So you can actually grab that workflow from here. If you want to get the rule, you can also just grab the rule generating agent from here as well, and then apply that to your own workflows. So one advice that I give to everyone is that the only way you're going to be more productive is if you're automating your work. Anything that you're doing repetitively on a daily basis, just automate that. So for example, I have a workflow for addressing PR review commands. I have a workflow for automatically reviewing the generated code and apply the changes with CodeRabbit. I have a workflow for review the changes with Cursor's BugBot. I have a workflow that allows me to take current changes and create a linear ticket out of that, create a branch, put that branch on GitHub, create a pull request out of that. Feel free to read any of these workflows on the resource that I shared. It's all there, so you can be more detailed and review all of that. But basically, it's going to allow you to commit changes to commit changes to GitHub, create a linear ticket out of that, create a pull request out of that, create a pull request summary, and communicate all of that back to the linear or Jira as well. So that's going to save you a lot of time. This feature documentation is basically my memory agent. So I use this to create memory for a specific module so that the agents can understand what the specific module is doing. If you're working on a humongous code base, and then a lot of other workflows like merge resolver, review get a PR, right? And then I have this customized rules for this project. So if you happen to copy one of the rules that I generate, or if you shared, and then you want to customize all of those rules for your own project, you can just run this workflow. It's going to go through your context of the project and customize those for your project so that it is relevant to your project and not just something that is available out there, right? So, I would suggest everyone to create their own workflows. If you're doing it, if you're following the session, feel free to do that now and try to run that again to see how well that works, and hopefully that will help you move faster in production applications. Let's actually see the agent testing. So yeah, you can use, so now it's going through everything and making sure that the search is working beautifully. It's making sure that the breadcrumb navigation works, the filters button works. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be foolproof, but it actually is going to save you a lot of time when you are reviewing the PR. So if a colleague is reviewing your PR, it's going to save them so much time because your code is going to just end up being a lot more secure. So it tested that everything works. If something didn't work, it would also automatically fix its own mistakes. But yeah, so that's how I would go about testing, giving the model the necessary tools to understand how your end-to-end stack flows. There is also Sentry MCP server, Langsmith MCP server, Observe MCP server. So whatever tools you are using, it probably has an MCP server. You can give the models all those tools so that the model can actually have the full picture of your CI/CD pipeline and everything, and kind of it can fix itself whenever it makes a mistake. So that's how you move really, really fast. I'm going to stop it here because I think the testing is done, but it's just creating a summary. And as I mentioned, I had a strict rule that says do not create markdown files because I didn't want the models to use all these tokens to create a summary document, but it just creates a text file now. Anyway, so that's the testing front. I'm going to stop the agent. We already saw how we can apply security rules and generate secure code. So for example, if I was generating this again, I would actually use the rule that I created right here. If I was working on a new feature, new front-end feature, I would probably just apply this security rule so that it actually generates the secure code, and as a result of that, we're going to have less issues. Okay, so all of this is great, but I'm pretty sure that even after scanning all of this and testing all of this, it still has a ton of issues. It's not production ready yet, right? It's so how do we make sure that the code is reviewed properly, the code doesn't have any issues, right? So that's where CodeRabbit comes in. I'm sure many of you are already aware of CodeRabbit. So I have actually tested a lot of tools to review the code. Let me see what is the repository link. Yeah. So if I open pull request, and I'm showing you guys because I wanted to show you guys the strengths of different code review, AI code review tools that are available. None of them are perfect, but what I really like about CodeRabbit is because of the tools there is access to, right? So that's the strength of CodeRabbit because it can scan your code from multiple different angles from all these different tools, and as a result of that, it generally finds the issues much better. So this is the same changes that I have in my local, but just created a pull request for that. And then, as you can see, I did not create anything. All of this is generated by CodeRabbit. So it's now giving me a summary of all the changes, what's implemented, what file, and it's also giving me a sequence diagram so that I can easily understand what's happening in this specific pull request. And then if you go down, it's also giving me code walkthrough of what's exactly happening. So it's going to make pull requests reviewing the pull requests really easily. So one of the challenges in my org is that we did all of these cursor sessions to figure out how to write code more securely, how to test it properly. As a result of that, we are generating code extremely fast. As a team of, I think, 8 devs, we are opening more than 100 PRs in a week. So we are just generating code extremely fast, but reviewing that is really painful, because generating code is really easy, but with all these tools, but you still have to manually review every single PR to make sure that nothing goes bad in production. And then a lot of issues can just be there in the PRs. So by incorporating all these tools into the workflow, you're just making your job as a PR reviewer a lot more easier. And as you all know, the coding agents are working really well these days, and they're improving day by day. So I think probably in the next 2 to 3 years, we will be writing a lot less code, but we will be reviewing a lot of code, because you can't just let anything go to production, right? So that's where these workflows are really helpful, and understanding the strengths of each of these tools really helps you move faster and approve the PRs faster as well. So we already saw that. I think this is also generated by CodeRabbit. And then if you go down, it's also showing me what are the effects and stuff. I have another tool configured, CodeCov, that's also telling me the test coverage. So it's not only telling me, so because I have this CodeCov inside of it as well, it's now telling me if there's a test missing for a specific module in the code, and as you can see, I have really bad code coverage. So I need to add that. So this is also highlighting that. I also have GrabTile. One thing I like about GrabTile is that GrabTile is another code review tool. The reason I have GrabTile configured here is because GrabTile allows me to, let me open GrabTile here. So GrabTile also includes your cursor rules inside of the review. So it's not just using random tools, but it's also maybe I am, where did my connections go? Yeah. Yeah, custom context. So as you can see here, all of my cursor rules are also part of the code review in GrabTile. So that's why I love GrabTile, because it also takes another angle and reviews the code with my own standards, not just something that's defined in the tools. So that's why I have GrabTile. It also kind of figures out what I like versus what I don't like, and gives me that command. And yeah, as you can see, CodeRabbit found quite a lot of issues here. All of this could have been avoided if I ran a workflow inside of it that will help me fix all of these issues right inside the IDE without actually creating a pull request. Because if I did it without that, whoever is reviewing the code will have a hard time figuring out what's changed, and then the result of that, they probably end up spending 2 to 3 hours just reviewing my PR, and it's going to waste a lot of time and slow us down. So which is why having these tools inside of the IDE and fixing issues before they go to PR will save you a ton of time. So I just have this workflow. I just invoke that, and it's now taking all of my changes, and it's going to fix the changes as well. So it's analyzing. It's probably going to find the same issues that it found earlier. One more thing is Cursor also released their own agent review. So it didn't find any issues yet, but I could also start the review process here. And this actually can run on commit. So I believe that, let me open the settings here. Yeah. So you can start the agent review on commit. So every single time you commit something, it can automatically start the review, and we can configure how it works, but that's one way to kind of make sure that your review works really well. And then if you have a pro account in Cursor, you can also configure BugBot. I personally like CodeRabbit, which is why I'm not using Cursor's BugBot, but if you have Cursor BugBot, you can also define your BugBot rules like this. Simple BugBot.md file in the root of .cursor, and you can also kind of nest that as well, so that every single time it's in a specific module, that's going to take precedence. So you can have BugBot.md in your front end module. You can have BugBot.md in your back end, in your infra, and then it's going to take that BugBot file in the context when it's reviewing the BugBot locally, and also on your PRs when you run it through Cursor BugBot. So that's one thing to note as well. Yeah, I think we already.
Any questions from the audience at all? Everyone still alive out there? Good. I have a question.
Yeah.
So I have two questions. One, you've been editing a lot of rules, and you've been maintaining one project, right? It might have lots of modules, front end, back end, lots of bits and pieces. If you have lots of different projects, do you use the same set of rules, or do you iterate on them and have a completely new set for the new project, and iterate on them and have a new set for the new project? And then as you go on, do you end up with projects that have legacy like rules in them, and you have to maintaining the rules is as much of a work as maintaining the code?
Yeah, really great question. And I think this is one of the hardest problems to solve, like especially like when you're working on a code base or with a team of like, I don't know, 100, 200 devs, right? Because every single person has their own workflow, and they're probably working on different projects. So how do you make sure that the rules that you have are relevant for all the projects, right? So I start with the basic, which is what I have. So I'll take all the rules, and then I also have a rule for that, or I also have a command that helps me customize the rules for that specific project. So I think I showed this earlier as well, that I have this rule that's going to ask me a few questions to understand what I want to do or what I want to customize for that specific project. So it's also going to go through the code base, understand what's happening in the specific project, and then it's going to ask me a few questions. Hey, this is what I'm noticing. Do you still want to use this rule or change this in a little bit different manner, stuff like that, right? And then I have workflows, for example, this linear workflow, right? This linear workflow where I'm literally mentioning the ticket style, like AIC XXX. Right? So AIC is the code of the project on linear. So if you're working on a different project, the code is going to be different, right? So you need to modify all these tools for your new project, right? So you can take a baseline, and then you can basically run that agent that's going to take all of that context and customize those for that new project. And I would suggest using a model like Claude 4.5 Sonnet. So I could literally just shove the entire folder into the context, and then it can iterate on that because it understands what rules I have right now and what needs to update for the current project.
Okay, that makes sense. More maintenance, but it's maintenance that will accelerate you. My next question was, when you were looking at GitHub, I think it was CodeRabbit, you said that CodeRabbit can also have your cursor rules in there and review your cursor rules. Was it CodeRabbit doing that, or some other tool doing that? Review your cursor rules, or was it?
That was GrabTile.
Which one was that?
GrabTile. Did I? Yeah, here. So it has custom context. So you can bring all of your cursor rules, and this is repository scoped. So as you can see, it's saying that for this repository, so when it's going to review this project, it's going to apply these rules when reviewing as well on top of what it already has.
So my question is, and I think you've just answered it, is it's reviewing the code base and making sure it complies with the guidelines that
Yes.
are set out in these cluster rules. It's not reviewing the rules, it's reviewing the code complies with them.
Yes.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? I'm monopolizing the questions here.
And yeah, just to be clear, like I treat these rules as my own agents, because if you're not really testing your rules or your workflows, then it just means that you can't rely on these models to produce something. So to bring that determination, I think you need to like test these rules and make sure that they work as expected, and keep tweaking them until they work exactly as you want them to. Yeah. Yeah, so I think CodeRabbit is done reviewing the code. It does take a bit of time. So it found some issues and it's trying to fix those. It's asking me to edit the git ignore. So as you can see, with just one command, without me writing any prompt or anything, it just figured out what it needed to do, and then it automatically fixed all the issues, so that when I create the PR, it doesn't have all of those issues, right? Or you can also just mention your rule files here. So for example, I have a rule file that says, standards that says no comments or minimal comments. So you can also just say make sure this standard is followed. The benefit of having all of these rules and workflows is that if you share this across your team, it's one thing to like do this as an individual, but if you want to apply this in your team, and if you share this with your team, and if your team collaborates on these tools, and if they use agents to write code, all of the code is going to be really standard, and it's going to be really easy to understand what's happening in the entire code base as a result of that, because everyone kind of follows the same standards, same rules, and the output that you're getting is going to be really, really great, and it will be easy for other people to understand each other's work and really move fast as a team. And it's also great for the agents as well, because they have to like do less brainstorming to figure out what's going on where. So yeah, with this workflow, I think it's able to figure out what was wrong and fix all the issues. And then I have another workflow that I can probably use to, let me first create a linear ticket. So linear MCP, let me enable that. And the reason I keep enabling and disabling all these tools, because if I had everything enabled all at the same time, it's going to pollute the context, and I'm not going to get good results if everything is enabled. So I'm probably going to have to just keep working like this. All right, so now I have linear. I also need GitHub. So now let's say I want to take all of these changes and commit this to my GitHub. So I'm just going to invoke the commit changes linear to GitHub, and now it's going to create a branch for this. I'm on main branch right now, so it's going to create a branch for me. It's going to create a linear ticket for me, and create a pull request for me on GitHub, and then link that back to the linear ticket as well for issue management. Right?
I have another question.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I have certain projects that I contribute to. What you're doing and you're talking about is a lot of a team working on a project. Like you all know you're heading in the same direction, you're all using the same tools, mostly using the same rules, right? If you contribute to another project, like an open source project, there's sometimes some reluctance to take contributions that are obviously AI generated, right? Something I've used, and I don't know how ethical this is, and I'd be interested to hear people's point of view, is I've fed an AI all of my written work and told it write a pull request like I would write it. And when I submitted that, it was more successful at getting past people who don't like AI because it was written like I wrote it. And I know that's kind of cheating. Do you ever get resistance to these kind of like tools outside of the sphere of your organization, or is that just not?
I'm not sure I fully understand your question. Can you maybe rephrase a little bit? It's very
You
echoey.
can boil it down to, do you ever have reluctance from other people taking AI-generated code?
Yeah, almost all the time. Because developers, like, it was hard for me to as well, like, to change how I work or change, how I produce code, because I didn't like the AI making so many mistakes and stuff like that. But if I never started doing this, I would have never improved. So the way I tackle that is like asking the developer, hey, like, okay, that's okay if you don't like it. What it is that you hate doing on a daily basis? What it is that you don't like doing as part of your daily job? Let's first automate that. So that's how I get them on board, and I have them create a workflow that solves their problem. Once they create a workflow that solves their problem and saves them some time, if they don't like doing that task, for me it was exactly this workflow: commit changes linear to GitHub. Because I work at a startup, so sometimes I don't have a specific ticket to work on. I'm just told, hey, this is an issue we just have to fix. So I'm on a main branch. I just work on the fix. The fix is there. I don't want to go to Jira and create a ticket, go to GitHub and put the PR summary, review the code, all of that. That's painful, right? For me at least. So I created this workflow that literally just takes my current changes that I would have implemented, and then creates a linear ticket for that, and it basically just creates a pull request for that as well, and saves me so much time. So that's how I get the developers on board. Once they start using it, because now they have a workflow and they're using it in Cursor or Cloud Code, they're going to start to do it more and more. And I think that's how they will eventually see the value of AI generated code, and that's how they will start using it. And that was one of the biggest challenges that I had to solve at my org, because people didn't want to use Cursor to code. They didn't trust it.
Brilliant, thank you.
Composer one is really not great at doing anything other than coding. Let me actually try Gemini 3 here.
Incoming.
So it now created an issue, RC6. So if I go back to my linear now, I should see that issue here. RC6, right? It takes a while for the linear to update, so I'm just gonna force it. Yeah, so it's there. So I have the linear issue now. It assigned that to me as well. It's really slow. Yep, so it created a new branch, and then it's creating the commits for that, and in the end I think it's also going to create the PR. Right, so yeah. it's also grouping all the changes according to their usage and the functionality, so which creates a really nice Git commit history. I would have probably just staged everything all at once and just wrote really shitty commit message, but doing it to the agent is going to give you a lot more flexibility, and it's going to look much better as a result of that.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So what would you say are the main differences between Greptile, CodeRabbit, and BugBot, and how useful do you think it's having like many tools reviewing your code?
Yeah, great question. So BugBot is Cursor's inbuilt agent. The main benefit of using BugBot is that it's part of the Cursor ecosystem. So if you're already using Cursor, right, you can use BugBot to review your code. The additional benefit that I think BugBot has is that it can have module specific review rules. No other tools give you that. So for example, I have this, for example, I don't know, this is rules directory where I have all the markdown files. Let's say I wanted to have a rule here in this directory for this specific module, right? Or I want a rule for some other module like backend and frontend module. So you can have your own custom bugbot.md file in that specific module, and that's going to be applied when the agent starts to review the code on Git, right? So that's the main difference. However, the quality of the output or the issues that it catches, it's not going to be as great as CodeRabbit. I've tried Greptile, I've tried Graphite, I've tried CodeRabbit, I've tried Guitar, I've tried Cursor's BugBot, I've tried to use my own Cloud extensions to review code, with my own standard. So I've tried all these tools to figure out what gives me the best review, right? What catches the most issues, like actual relevant issues and not hallucinations. And so far, I've just been impressed with CodeRabbit. It catches everything correctly. There's like less hallucinations. Cursor still sometimes catches issues that are not really an issue and just hallucination. So out of all of that, I used to use BugBot. I'm not using it anymore. I mainly use CodeRabbit because it works really, really well. And then I use Greptile as well. Because Greptile also reviews the code from my coding standard. So this is something that I had to do manually before, meaning that once I generate the code, I had to like manually invoke the command to make sure that, hey, did the generated code follow my standards or not? And then if not, it would fix that. But if you don't want to do that, I do that, but let's say like someone in my team doesn't do that all the time. So how do we make sure that they also follow the same standard? So Greptile will catch that. So if you don't follow the workflow that I've defined to catch the issues, well, you're going to be forced to do that. So Greptile does that for you. So that's the strength of Greptile. CodeRabbit is just like really good overall. So it catches the issues from multiple different angles, which is what I really, really like. So I think that's the strength of CodeRabbit. I hope that answers your question. Why is it keep just do it? Yeah. Gemini 3.3 Pro seems to be really interactive. It wants to ask me a lot of questions before it does anything. Sorry, I'm just trying this live. I've never tried this model. It just got released an hour ago. So my tool is not working. Use CLI. I'm just going to ask it to use the CLI. So we're going to use Cursor, Composite 1. And let's see what's left in the presentation. I think after this is done, we are done.
I have another question.
Yeah.
I notice you switch models and providers quite frequently, like, oh, this one's a bit slow, or that one doesn't do what I want. Is that common? Do you not stick with one from the start to finish? You're just flip-flop, or is that just the environment that we're in that you're doing that? Is that a common thing?
Yeah, so there's two things that I do very frequently. One is switching on and off the MCP servers, because if I have everything enabled, so for example, for this specific task, linear to GitHub, I only wanted linear and the GitHub MCP tool. And the reason is because if I had everything else enabled, the models can get confused because it might be just all of these tools are taking a lot of context, right? So all of these tool descriptions and args, I think they're all going into the model's context window, right? So if you enable all the tools, it's going to fill up the context window. And then I switch a lot of models as well, frequently based on the task. The reason I just switched to Composer 1 right now is because Gemini was just really, really slow, and I didn't need a lot of accuracy here because the most of the work was already done. So that's why I used Composer 1, and also I saw the ring here that told me that, hey, for Composer I'm only at 50% context. So if it's more than 70%, I would not have used Composer. I would have probably used 4.5 Sonnet or Gemini because it has 1 million tokens. But that's the workflow that I would always pick for. Keep looking at the context window to make sure that you're under 50% or 70% at least, and then change the models based on the task. So if I'm reviewing any code, I always actually use 5.1 codex or GPT-5 codex because it's extremely good at reviewing code. Or like I mentioned earlier, you could actually just say, use different models. I'm going to use 2x Composer, 5.1 codex, and so on, and then say, review the current Git diff for issues and make sure that they follow the coding standard. And then I would
question to that. So in auto mode, isn't it supposed to be doing that kind of optimization in the background, between the different models and providers? Is that not what's happening? And then second question is, if you're using one model versus the other, you can quickly run out of tokens, and right? So how do you prevent that, right? What's the point of auto mode if we're switching back and forth?
Sorry, because of the echo, it's really hard to hear.
So what is the point of does auto mode not do that for you? And if it does, isn't that making manual switching pointless? Yes?
Yeah, I never use auto mode because I want to be very selective about what model I'm using. When you use the auto mode, it's going to pick the best model it thinks is for the task. But that's not what I want to do. I just want to be selective about what model I'm using, because for complicated tasks, for implementation, I always use 4.5 Sonnet. For creating the plan, I use GPT-5 codex, right? For reviewing, I use GPT-5 codex. And if I have the plan and I want to implement in parallel, I use Composer and 4.5 Sonnet. So it depends on the task you're doing, but I never use auto mode because what I've realized is that if it makes mistakes, you're actually going to end up spending way more tokens to fix those things. So I want to use an expensive model from the start, so it just one-shots whatever I want to do, and then you're going to end up saving more time and tokens.
Great, thank you.
I normally start with the planning mode. I have my own planning mode. So just to give you some context on this question, I spend about 80% of my time in planning and only 20% with implementation. And in planning, I create a document that outlines every single task. So it is a spec-driven dev, but I have my own mode that asks me relevant questions every single time before it does anything. So basically, my planning document is the exact replica of what's going to be implemented in code, and then the models just work really, really well. So that's why you need to have different models do different things, and and you can basically one-shot whatever you want to develop.
We have another question down the back.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate the sharing of the models and how the models that you're choosing models, and there's considerations about speed as well, and of course token generation and how fast these tokens are coming through and just kind of hitting us, and it just kind of speeds up development. But I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts on having it optimized for like particular chips or systems, specifically like the M5 that just came out, or even like other types of like systems or chips where things are just going to like really be moving around speedily, locally. Of course, we're limited to whatever the speed is online with models that are existing over the air. But I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about the speed of the chips, and if there was any optimizations happening behind the scenes considerations. Thank you.
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking if there is any optimization on the chips that can help generate tokens faster?
Yeah, I think in summary, you're thinking of optimizing based on your experience.
Yeah.
What about optimizing for the silicon that it's being run on? Is that right? No, ish.
Well, so basically, if I'm understanding your question correctly, like how do I optimize the prompts or optimize these workflows so that they are like more optimized for the specific model or the specific chip that the model is running on? Is that correct?
I think the capabilities, like GPUs these days, they're moving so fast. The hardware is moving fast, and so is the software, and drivers, and all of that. Like, is there scope for us to do that? To switch model because this works better on NVIDIA, or that one works better on AMD, but only this chipset and only with this driver, that kind of stuff, which may be hard for you to see.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. We can absolutely do that. I can probably talk to him afterwards and explain to him like how to achieve that. But I think it's definitely possible. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Hey, sorry, do you have any recommendations for like refactoring large code bases when you don't have all the...
Can you speak a little louder?
Do you have any recommendations for like refactoring a large code base, or applying similar rule sets to a large code base? Working with legacy code as opposed to building new features. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah. Refactoring legacy code and kind of refactoring a large code base is a massive task, and it's really difficult. So I would normally do it in phases. So first of all, I would create a detailed plan about a specific module on like how to refactor that specific module, and then have that file on the module level. So kind of like a memory or knowledge transfer file on that specific module that tells, hey, this is what this module is doing. Once you have that, then you can basically also try to create cursor rules for that specific module, so that lives inside of that module itself. And then you can basically gradually start to work on each of those modules and have these models test its own work as well. And like if it's not done, like it cannot be done in one shot, right? So you might have to like first create or migrate everything and then have the models test it. And the reason I said like you have to have that knowledge transfer file at the module level is because it's going to tell the model later on, this is what the legacy code was doing, this was the function, and this is how you're supposed to work. So in the new modules as well, you're going to have the same files that's going to describe what that model is supposed to do. And then when you combine all those files and ask the models to test its own work or test the module once the entire app is migrated, it's going to be able to figure out that, hey, this was the existing feature and now this is it. Does it work? And you also have to give it the context that, hey, like I'm migrating, or I have migrated the old COBOL code into Python or something like that, right? So it knows that, hey, this was a COBOL code base, and now I'm running this, now I'm seeing this in Python form, and this was the feature before. So it can understand that, hey, this, like, I have to take care of these things. The models are smart enough to understand that, hey, if I'm doing this migration, these are the issues that can happen, and it will probably help you fix that. And then creating reusable workflows along the way to speed up the process, it's really gonna help you. Because if you're not gonna create the workflows, you're gonna have to like manually prompt every single time, and that's not gonna be consistent across your entire migration. And as a result of that, you're not gonna have consistent code base, and you might actually end up having more mistakes in the code base. So I think that's what I would probably do to migrate a legacy code base. I hope that answers your question.
It's a big project, so thanks for
Any more final questions as we get close to the end?
Yeah, so I think if no more questions, I think, yeah, this will be the end of my workshop.
Thank you so much. Round of applause, please. Shrey, I think I've learned a lot about Cursor today, more than I have about anything else, having seen it in action for a good couple of hours now. It's fantastic. Thank you so much. And the other thing I want to say is the Git repo that you've been showing that's got your rules in,
yeah.
or a lot of your rules in, that's like public, people can share that, people can use that,
public,
learn from that. Wonderful. And we put the link in the Zoom. It's also been posted in our Discord. If you're not on either of those platforms, then fair enough, I won't judge you. But if you want to come and find either of us, we can show you where to find that repo. Actually, if you put it up there, then people could take a photo of it. If you want to put the Git repo up there, then we could, people would take photos as they go away or something. Thank you once again. Next session starts at 3 o'clock. Stretch your legs, get a drink. We'll see you at the next one. Thank you so much.